Most executives who want the CEO role think about it in the wrong way. They think about it as something that will be given to them, a reward for consistent performance, loyalty, and hitting the numbers year after year. They wait, they deliver, they trust that somewhere above them the right people are noticing. And sometimes that works, but more often it doesn't. And the executives who are most blindsided, most generally surprised, when someone else gets the role, or when the search goes external, or when they're told they're not quite ready, are almost always the ones who are waiting rather than positioning. This video is about the difference between the two. Specifically, what deliberate positioning for the CEO role actually looks like when you're doing it from inside your current organization. So why internal positioning is harder than it looks. There is a particular challenge that executives face when positioning for the top job from inside their own organization. You already have a reputation. People have a fixed idea of who you are and what you're capable of. The COO is the COO. The CFO is the CFO. The image is established. Changing that image, expanding it to include CEO level thinking, CEO level presence, CEO level judgment, requires deliberate effort that most executives either don't make or don't make correctly. The first mistake is trying to be more visible without being more substantial, taking on more projects, volunteering for more committees, making sure their name appears on more things, and then wondering why it hasn't shifted how they're perceived at the top. Visibility without substance is just noise, and noise doesn't get you the CEO role. The second mistake is positioning as the best version of the current role rather than as the next version of a bigger role. There is a ceiling on how impressive you can be as a COO. If everything you do is COO shaped, no matter how brilliantly executed, the board and the current CEO will see a great COO, which is generally valuable, but is not what they are looking for when they are thinking about succession. So the 3 moves that actually work. Let me give you 3 specific moves that actually shift how you're perceived inside the organization. The first is what I call the CEO conversation. This is a direct, private, well-prepared conversation with your current CEO where you name your ambition clearly and ask explicitly for their input on what they need to see from you to have genuine confidence in you as a successor. Most executives don't have this conversation. They tell themselves it will seem presumptuous, or that their current CEO will feel threatened, or simply that having the conversation will somehow make them appear less ready because they don't already know the answer. Those are all forms of the avoidance loop, a pattern I talk about in detail elsewhere on this channel. The truth is that most CEOs respect the executives who have this conversation far more than those who don't. It demonstrates self-awareness, strategic clarity, and the kind of relational courage that the CEO role demands by the bucket load. Have the conversation, name what you want, ask what's needed, then close the gap. The second move is to change the shape of the problems you work on. An executive generally positioning for the CEO role starts taking on problems that are CEO shaped, cross-functional, strategically uncertain, politically complex, without obvious right answers and without someone above them to validate the direction. This is not about taking on more work, it's about taking on a different work that demonstrates the kind of thinking and judgment the top role requires. And critically, make sure the right people see you doing it and see how you handle the ambiguity, the pressure, and the decisions that can't be justified purely with data. The third move is external visibility. This one surprises executives who think position is purely an internal game. The CEO role is a boundary role. It operates at the intersection of the organization and the world outside it. A candidate who is known only inside their own organization, no matter how strong that internal reputation, is a materially different candidate from one who has genuine visibility in the industry. with relevant professional associations, with a talent community, with peers across sectors. This doesn't mean becoming a public figure. It means being known in the right rooms beyond the walls of your current organisation. It's the interior game in positioning. Here is where I want to add something that most career development content completely misses. Positioning is partly external. The 3 moves I've described are real and they work, but they rest on something underneath them that most executives haven't addressed. How you come across in a room when the stakes are high, how you hold yourself under scrutiny, how you speak when you know you're being addressed, how you respond when challenged on your thinking, how much of your actual capability people can generally access when you're in that kind of pressure. These are not presentation skills issues, they are interior game issues. I've watched genuine capable executives lose the CEO role, not because they lack strategic capability or track record, but because in the moments that mattered most, something closed down. The thinking got narrow, the presence became defended, the person in the room felt smaller than the person on paper, and the people making the decisions sensed it even when they couldn't articulate what they were sensing. The most powerful positioning work you can do is interior work, developing the kind of settled, grounded, generally present authority that reads as CEO ready before a single word of track record has been spoken. That is what deep leadership is built around. The framework of self, people, and complexity. The 3 dimensions every CEO must genuinely be strong across. It is not an external model to memorize. It is a description of interior development. And when all 3 are generally developed, positioning becomes almost natural. Because you don't need to try to seem CEO ready. You are ready. So what to do this week? Let me give you something concrete to take away. This week, ask yourself 3 honest questions. First, does your current CEO know explicitly that you want the role? Not implied, not assumed, stated directly in actual conversation. Second, in the last 3 months, have you worked on problems that are CEO shaped, or only problems that are shaped like your current role? Third, are you known anywhere outside your organization? Could someone who has never met you find evidence of your thinking and your leadership perspective? If any of those answers is no, you've got work to do. And the good news is that all 3 are entirely within your control starting this week. If this is useful, if it's naming territory you've been thinking about but haven't had a clear map for, subscribe to this channel. There's more of this work here every week. And if you want to go deeper on your own CEO readiness, there's a link below where you can start a conversation. I'm Stevenson. This is Deep Leadership, so let's get to work.